Breaking news you're hearing here first. 3 people have been charged in the death of One Direction singer Liam Payne. Argentinian prosecutors made this announcement late Thursday, saying 3 people are charged with abandonment of a person followed by death and supply and facilitation of narcotics. So far, we don't have these suspects' names, but we kind of know their relationship to Payne. One suspect was a, quote, person who accompanied the artist on a daily basis during his stay in the city of Buenos Aires. A second suspect is a hotel employee, and a third suspect is an apparent drug dealer.
La realidad es que no le suministré drogas. Con Liam nos conocimos, él me contactó en lo que es mi trabajo. Ahí nos pasamos lo que es el contacto, y nos vimos, sí, ahí nos juntamos, él me mostró un poco de su música, de la música que iba a sacar adelante.
You guys, the news surrounding former One Direction superstar Liam Payne's death keeps getting wilder. We're talking brand new jaw-dropping details showing alleged signs of foul play, with 3 people now arrested, a missing Rolex worth over 30,000 pounds, and a shady suspicion over who was with him that night and who might have supplied the substances found in his system. And get this, experts are now saying that all 25 injuries Liam had weren't even from the balcony fall alone. Now, brace yourselves, because the details are all kinds of shocking, and trust me, things are only getting crazier by the minute. Y'all, there is a lot to unpack here, so grab your popcorn and let's get right into it.
Well, this recent development relative to this individual that they have essentially charged but no arrest, and it kind of reads like this. It's an abandonment of a person followed by death.
We don't need to go into the context of the Buenos Aires hotel incident, where Liam was supposedly to be enjoying some downtime while supporting his friend and former bandmate Niall Horan, who was performing there. Turns out this quick trip to Argentina turned into something straight out of a crime thriller. However, it's important to note that reports said that on the last day, Liam was acting strange, kind of erratic, and not himself, which prompted hotel staff to call the local authorities because apparently they were super concerned about his behavior. But it was too little too late, because not long after, a loud noise echoed through the hotel, and that's when things took a dark turn. And this right here is where controversy starts swirling up, with people already questioning just how awfully suspicious it was that an employee called 911 saying they were afraid that Liam might hurt himself, and then boom. So from the very beginning, this just didn't come off as some tragic incident, and we've heard all sorts of wild conspiracy theories. But now that it's the authorities speaking and presenting their findings, we all better listen. And let me tell you, the authorities in Argentina are treating this as a full-blown investigation. This brings us to the 3 persons of interest associated with the incident. Now, I know you're probably wondering who these people are and why the authorities are so sure that they are involved. Trust me, we're now diving right into that part of the story, and you won't believe the twists in this case. So anyways, without wasting any more time, let's get into all the messy details and the suspects involved in this high-profile investigation.
This man here, Rogelio, obviously the last person that's seen Liam Payne, or one of, he's one of the most powerful men in Argentina. Guys, what would these 2 guys have in common to be next to each other? Roger had the go-ahead to build 4 power plants to power 600 homes in Argentina, Buenos Aires, because of the power cuts around summertime. Who's heard of BlackRock? The person who bought his debt out to give him up to 700 million was BlackRock. Oh wait, check this, what I've just figured out. Maybe Roger knew something in the pipeline, he heard something, he knew that someone was in the building that didn't like this guy, maybe an ex-girlfriend that the manager said supposed to have been upstairs in another room. Maybe this is why Roger tried to coax Liam out and said, get your stuff, let's go, without being a grass. Maybe he knew a deeper meaning behind what was happening to Liam and what he seen was happening, but he couldn't say anything because he's in the middle of a place where he owns a business in this area. Obviously in things like this, it's classed as treason when you go against the grain of your authorities or local members.
Now, one of the main suspects here is a guy named Rogelio Roger Norris. He is a big-time Argentinian businessman who even made it onto the Forbes 30 Under 30 list back in 2018, so yeah. He is no small fry. Norris was supposedly one of Liam's close friends, and he claimed that he was just hanging out with him, supporting him as a friend, and had no idea anything like this would happen. But that's not the point. Police have reasonable doubt that Rogelio Roger might have had a lot more to do with it. According to officials, they're saying Norris didn't just leave Liam alone, but actually abandoned him in a way that might have led to his death, and apparently there's a charge for this. It's called abandonment of a person followed by death, which is super intense. It's basically like saying you knew he was in trouble, but you just left him there. Believe it or not, this charge could carry some serious jail time.
Well, this recent development relative to this individual that they have essentially charged but no arrest, and it kind of reads like this. It's an abandonment of a person followed by death. And again, I don't know if I'm getting that translation right, but you and I were talking about this, and this is quite fascinating because here in the U.S., we use a term called callous indifference many times. In order to, I think, charge someone with this, there has to be, or the authorities would have to think that this individual had assessed them and should have been aware that the individual was in distress. Instead of doing anything, they turn around on their heel, take it on the heel, and walk out the door. And that's what's being implied here, Jesse. And this is a single person out of this trio that are under suspicion, I think, for some kind of involvement.
On the flip side, Roger has defended himself, saying that he never abandoned Liam, and in fact, he went to his hotel 3 times that day and just left 40 minutes before the incident had happened. According to Roger's recollection, Liam was in a good mood by the time he was leaving, and he was even chatting, joking with over 15 people in the hotel lobby. Y'all remember the distressed woman who was beyond devastated about Liam's passing, saying that she was among the last people to interact with him, and he even sang for her? I don't know about y'all, but this kind of corroborates Roger's story that he was in fact hanging out with some fans literally a few moments before his demise. But that's not even the end of it. Another suspect is one Brian Noel Piz, a hotel employee who worked at the same hotel where Liam was staying. Piz is accused of something that makes this whole thing even sketchier: supplying Liam with drugs. Yep, there are claims that Piz was more than just an innocent bystander. Officials think he provided some substances found in Liam's room. This accusation is backed by security footage from the hotel showing Piz and Liam hanging out more than once during his stay. Now, this particular one gets crazier. Piz has actually come forward with his own side of the story. He admitted that he and Liam did spend some time together and even took some substances together. But he is saying he never supplied anything directly. In his words, "I never supplied Liam with drugs. Liam's first contact with me was at my place of work. We swapped details and saw each other later that night. It was all normal. He came down from his hotel to fetch me because I got lost." Now, people found this super sus on so many levels.
La realidad es que no le suministré drogas. Con Liam nos conocimos, él me contactó en lo que es mi trabajo. Ahí nos pasamos lo que es el contacto, y nos vimos, sí, ahí nos juntamos, él me mostró un poco de su música, de la música que iba a sacar adelante.
Let's just sit with this one for a sec. Is it just me, or is Paz's statement giving major creepy vibes? I mean, what are the chances that an A-list celeb just casually meets a hotel employee, they exchange numbers, hang out later that night, and suddenly they're getting high together? Sure, maybe Liam and Paz were total strangers before that night, but let's be real, it's way more likely that they linked up for the pink stuff, and who knows what else ended up in Liam's system. But hey, that's just my take. And let's not forget about the suspect number 3, Esquel David Pieria, another hotel worker. This guy's accused of hooking Liam up with more substances, which just adds another layer of messiness to this entire situation. The authorities say that they have solid evidence that Piz and Pieria both provided Liam with illegal substances, which could explain why things took such a dark turn that night.
There have been rumors that one of the hotel employees may have been involved, that he may have also been a drug dealer who was the one who got narcotics for Payne, because I don't know how many people know, but Payne, he was struggling for years with addiction, and investigators have indicated that they don't think necessarily there's a third party involved in the death per se. Like, again, a person killing Payne, or intent on killing Payne, I should say.
Yep.
But they are still searching for this alleged drug dealer. In fact, an Argentinian TV reporter said this week, "We understand a person who is part of the hotel staff has been suspended after being linked to the supply of drugs to Liam Payne. We'll have to see how that now plays out. It is a person who worked in the hotel's restaurant."
But here's the craziest part. The investigators have put together over 800 hours of video footage from the hotel to piece this story together. They're pulling footage from every possible angle in the hotel, tracing Liam's last interactions, his movements, and even what he ordered at the restaurant before everything went down. On top of that, they're digging into his phone to see every message, call, social media post that might offer more clues. They are really out here putting together a full puzzle, trying to get to the bottom of what happened and whether these three suspects were involved in any way. But let's just take a minute to think about this. Liam Payne, a guy who has been very open about his struggles with addiction and his journey to sobriety, found himself in this kind of situation far from home. It's heartbreaking because, according to his friends, he'd been sober for a while and he was really working to turn things around, and yet somehow all this tragedy unfolded what should have been a chill visit to support a friend. Anyways, with so much evidence stacking up, the Argentinian officials seem to be determined to hold someone accountable. The fact that they're charging people with things like abandonment and illegal supply shows that they're taking this case seriously. But it also raises a big question about responsibility. And who is really responsible here? Some people feel that at the end of the day, it wasn't anyone's job to babysit a grown adult who got himself hooked on drugs. At the same time, someone must have supplied him with the said stuff, right? And for that, if these people really had a hand in what happened, even in the smallest way, they're going to have to face the consequences. Liam's death has left a huge void, and the people who knew him deserve answers, not just headlines. All right, fam, here's where things start to get real strange. And by strange, I mean this story is taking a twist that no one saw coming. So listen up. Initially, there were all these wild reports swirling around that Liam had a cocktail of intense substances in his system, including something called pink cocaine. And just to give you a little background, from what I've gathered, pink cocaine is a synthetic mix of various powerful drugs. It's not your average run-of-the-mill stuff. But hold on to your seats, because officials later clarified that this was all false info. Yep, no pink cocaine was found. Instead, toxicology reports showed traces of alcohol, regular cocaine, and an antidepressant, all detected within the last 72 hours before his passing. Now, this is where you'd know that things have gone off the rails. It obviously raises questions, but officials are adamant that it's a trace amount, nothing over the top.
That initial report showed traces of a lot of substances in his system when he died. Those included cocaine, benzodiazepine, crack, as you mentioned, the party drug pink cocaine. The full toxicology results aren't expected to be available for another few weeks, and it is important to note we don't know how much of any one of this substance was found in Payne's blood. So,
not to forget that these tests weren't done half-heartedly. They ran a full toxicology panel checking his blood, urine, and even eye fluid, yes, that's a thing, to ensure everything was accurate. That's how serious they were about getting to the bottom of this. However, the investigators have also encountered another challenge, because since Liam's remains were flown back to the UK for his family, there is no way to rerun these tests, even though the samples are all still in Argentina. So if his family wanted a second opinion, they'd be out of luck unless they could somehow gain access to the original samples over there.
Here's the problem, because this is, you know, in a foreign country. I understand that Liam's remains have been transferred back to the family. He's headed back to the UK. They're going to have a proper burial. I'm hoping that they're going to be able to do an assessment on his remains there, maybe where the family has control over his remains. They can perhaps hire a pathologist to go back and take a second look. But the rub here is the fact that those original samples are in another country, and to not to be grotesque here or disrespectful, but his remains would have had to have been prepared prior to the movement back to the UK. So any kind of blood samples or things like that that you might want, not going to have them.
Now, as for Liam's injuries, let's just say they're intense, but not suspicious in the way you might think. Every single injury is reportedly consistent with a high fall, and investigators have ruled out any signs of self-harm or anyone else pushing him. It's like this was just a tragic accident. They're saying that Liam didn't even adopt a reflex posture to protect himself from the fall, like holding out his arms or anything. That detail alone suggests that he may have been unconscious or not fully aware, which makes everything even sadder if you ask me. Just the thought of him in that state, completely vulnerable, it's heartbreaking. But it's not as simple as it sounds, because even though it wasn't intentional, it still leaves so many questions unanswered. How did he end up in this state, barely able to move or protect himself? Like, if he was truly that out of it, then how did he throw himself off the balcony? The fact that he had a cocktail of substances, including alcohol, an antidepressant in his system might give some context, but it's just, I don't know. There's something unsettling about the idea that he didn't even try to break his fall. And to think that this wasn't some random guy off the street, we're talking about a major star. And somehow he ended up in a situation with no one around to help him, it's messed up. Investigators counted up to 25 separate injuries on his body. And not just from the fall, they're talking cuts, bruises, lacerations all over, injuries you wouldn't get just from one impact.
When you have either lacerations, abrasions, or contusions, you try to find a pattern there, okay? Now, if he has like skinned up knuckles, for instance, or the back of the hand, there's maybe, I don't know, a square-shaped bruise, that's not necessarily going to marry up with an impact directly on the ground beneath this balcony. I want to go back up into the room and search all of the surfaces. I want to look for blood deposition. Like, let's just say he's picked something up, thrown it to the ground. Maybe it was glass. He picked it up again and cut itself. And it doesn't have to be a major cut. That could be counting a single glass cut on his hand. Also, they keep saying balcony. He went over the balcony. Okay, how did he get out onto the balcony? Did he have to force the door open? Did he break the glass to get out there? Or was it just wide open and you can go anywhere you want? I have no idea. But to sit there and say that all of these injuries originated from a single fall, I'm not buying it.
Now, when forensic experts took a look at those injuries, they started to suspect that there might have been a fight, or that he might have sustained some of those cuts earlier that day, and some probably when he was throwing things around the room. This could make sense because with 25 separate marks, you can't help but wonder if someone else was in that room. The whole setup just doesn't scream accident. But still, here's the official take. They've ruled out murder and self-harm, so where does that leave us? Honestly, it's like every answer just leads to even more questions.
Free falling through the air 45 feet, and it's in a courtyard, so one can assume that this is probably ceramic tile, maybe even poured concrete. When you hit that surface, you don't bounce. I think a lot of people have an idea that you bounce about, when you strike the ground. You don't. I'm not saying he hit terminal velocity at that altitude, 45 feet, but what I am saying is that most people are not going to walk away from that, let alone stand up and then create other injuries that are not necessarily associated with the initial impact injury. You might find, let's just play out a scenario. Let's say someone fell off of a balcony and they struck between their shoulder blades, and then as a result, they kind of whiplash back and they strike their head, kind of the occipital area. You can have those two injuries. They're not mutually exclusive in any way. However, if you've got multiple injuries all over various surfaces of your body, that dog won't hunt. It doesn't make sense. It's kind of like when you hear parents who are abusing children, they'll say, well, my kid fell out of a tree, broke his arm. Okay, but why do they have injuries on the leg, the foot, the other arm, on the back of the neck? All this, it doesn't make sense. And
and here's the tea that makes this even messier. Liam's expensive Rolex watch has gone missing. Yep, the man was sporting a high-end custom Rolex, and the available footage shows that he had it even on the very last day. But after his fall, the watch was nowhere to be found. Not on him, not in his room. Now, this is a Rolex worth a whopping 30,000 pounds. That is just not some accessory that you misplace. The investigators scoured his hotel room, which looked like a hurricane had hit it. Furniture overturned, items shattered, nothing Nothing. They even checked with the suspects and even interviewed some people he'd reportedly spent some time with, but so far, nothing. It's like it vanished into thin air. They even went as far as searching the homes of everyone he'd been in contact with, including 2 female escorts he was allegedly seen with during his stay. Still, no Rolex in sight. And y'all, if you're thinking someone might have swiped it to sell it for cash or whatever, you're not alone. A luxury item like that isn't exactly something an escort would hold on to for sentimental value. It's way more likely that someone is trying to cash in big time. Whether it's for money or something else, that watch is gone, and its disappearance just adds a whole new layer of suspicion to this already dark story. With so much still unanswered, you'd start to wonder if the people around Liam really had his best interests at heart, or if they saw him as some kind of easy target. If you thought the story couldn't get any wilder, think again. We're diving into the deep end with the new details and theories that will have you questioning everything about Liam Payne's tragic final hours. Another twist! Sources say that Liam's former bodyguard and lifetime friend, Paul Higgins, also needed to be investigated. But it soon became clear that Paul wasn't with Liam, but in fact, only flew to Argentina to support his family after the incident. Let's just say that people have been super skeptical of anyone who was around Liam, cause clearly, though Paul wasn't working with Liam at the time, his arrival stirred even more speculation. And then there's Liam's girlfriend, Kate Cassidy. The fact that she traveled with him initially but flew back to the US just days before his death sparked talk about whether her absence had anything to do with Liam's mental state. People have been lashing out at Kate for leaving him behind, but we all agreed not to make this about her because she had extended her stay long enough to stay with him. But even 2 weeks later, Liam still didn't want to leave Argentina. Oh, I did a whole video on this. If you missed it, you need to go back and watch how nasty and mean some people have been to innocent Kate. With all these new details piling up, one thing is for sure, this story is far from over. Argentina's prosecutors are determined to get to the bottom of this, and fans around the world are rallying for justice. And if you thought that this was just another celebrity tragedy, think again. People are starting petitions, calling for mental health support for artists like Liam who get chewed up and spit out by the industry. Thank you all for tuning in, and if you are ready to dive even deeper into this mystery, check out the previous video where I broke down the disturbing info about Liam Payne's last minutes before his death. There is so much more to unpack, so click that link and I'll see you there.